We have seriously saved the best for last. So I want to take the opportunity to introduce Mike Kulagowski, Technical Advisor at Geology. He's here to talk to us today about mastering directional trends through geology. So help me welcome Mike to the stage.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Kulagowski. I'm a geologist with Geology. Today I'm going to be presenting to you an app that was developed during the annual Corva hackathon. And what this app was, it was a dream of trying to figure out how we can combine multiple sources of data into one single spot to be able to answer questions such as if we are noticing directional challenges in our horizontal wells, when the well is drifting to the left, to the right, up or down, is it something that's mechanically induced or something that is rock related? So similar to if I'm driving on the road and my car is pulling one direction, is it the road, the angle of the road pulling me? Maybe my tire is flat and I'm going one direction or another. Or is it a gust of wind that's pushing it? What is that variable that's inducing that change? Same logic goes for our directional work. Is it something that's mechanically related or something that is related to the rock? Here's an example of a set of wells drilled a couple years ago, where we have a structure map. The blue colors, the cooler colors, are deeper, warmer colors are higher in elevation. So looking at one of the middle wells along here, we start drilling the well, we work our way into a down dip, back up dip, up this steep hill, and then back down. So we're going down at about an 87-degree angle, then working our way back up at 93, up to 97, and then down to 83. With such steep angles and pushing us to one side, the question that I had before these wells were started is how much is that structure going to impact our wells? If we're drilling along this section here, is it going to pull us into that deeper section, kind of like a ball rolling downhill? Is it going to want to go that path of least resistance downhill? Is gravity going to work with us? Or is it going to have some sort of other reaction? Or if it's not the structure, is it somewhere within the stratigraphic section? Is it that particular rock that we're drilling in? Is it that brittle rock or that particular clay that's inducing that for us? So it's a combination of both. Which one is it? Is it one or the other? And answering this kind of question has always been a challenge because there's a lot of data that goes into this in order for us to be able to look at this. Right now, what we have is our basic well plan. So in red, we have our well plan. The dark black line is our well, so we can see how the well is deviating up and down. We can derive in our geosteering software simple left and right curves to see how far we're going left, right, and up, down. So we can see those numbers. And then in Corva and other apps, we can see the same thing, left, right, up, down. We got the geosteering app. We can see all these things in different segments. But how can we pull that all together to start answering those questions? Like, what data do we need in one single visual in order to be able to start making sense of that? When we started designing this app, it was, how do we do it? We got all these data sources, but what is the data that we need to see? From the drilling side, the well location, the well plan versus actual, where are we? So we get that position. And then tool face and tool face accuracy, that helps us determine what the DD was doing at that point in time. So it helps us determine where were they heading and at what time were they heading? What was the intended target that they were going after? And from geology, at a minimum, the gamma rays, so we know what rock we're in, and then the structure, so we can see what the surface is behaving. So we went through a couple iterations. Do we want to see all of our data on a single track with multiple wells, or do we want to show kind of in this binned out, so we see a couple tracks in one? What would be the most effective way of viewing it? So the app that we have developed from that is called the Rock Navigator. And the pieces of information that we have, I'll go through them, starting on the left-hand side. This is our left-right from plan, with the center being our 0. So if it's to the left, we can see that number, and if it's to the right, we can see that number when you hover over it. We got the up-down, so it tells us that up-down direction component to it. And on these lines, it may be difficult to see in this image, but we have little arrows, and those arrows are the tool face orientation. So at any point in time, we can see what the tool face is. So if the well is starting to pull, let's say, this direction here, it's going to the right very far. When did the directional driller go ahead and have that tool face oriented to work back towards plan? When was that change made. So when we start seeing at these arrows, we can see if something is pulling us and they're correcting for it, they're fighting it. Now we can see it's not that DD was not paying attention, the structure's pulling it. They're trying to correct for it. Same logic goes for the up-down. So if they are fighting it, we can look at the tool face accuracy. That can give us an indication of if they are trying to get a reaction, but it's not turning out as what they wanted to, that accuracy is going to be low. So if we're trying to find that, what sections of rock may be causing us problems, by looking at what the left, right, up, down is, and what they're trying to, and they're fighting back, that could be potentially a spot for us of interest. But that just shows us the mechanical portion of it. What about the geology? How do we look at the geology in this particular image? We got these little green dots with these lines, typically what we see in a dip meter, these old tadpole plots where the little line, the direction that it's oriented tells us our dip. So that lets us see what the dip of the grid is. They're a little bit exaggerated, but if it's 90 degrees, it'd be flat, or you can make it tilted where it shows you up dip, down dip. So as we're working our way down a particular lateral, instead of looking at this image, we can see, oh, the structure is going down, so the little tadpoles will be down, and then when you're working your way up. So if you're trying to see if something's being pulled left or right, we can see that, and then which direction those grids are dipping. Is it dipping to the southeast, northeast? Where these dots are oriented on the axis, that tells us our angle. So that gives us which direction they're going, to the left, to the right, forward, down, or back. That lets us see our structure all in one image. So by combining all these little bits and pieces of it, we can get that idea of it. And ultimately, what I want to have in this app is the capability of us to be able to automatically identify these spots for us where they're trying to correct, but it's pulling them one way, and it's a rock of interest that we may want to be able to look into and potentially avoid. But just looking at it from that particular view just tells us that surface view. But what about the rock? If we see it pulling us in one way or another, but the structure may not be changing it, is it the rock, that lithology? What layer are we in? Combining the other apps that we have in Corva, our Formation Insights app, which tells us from the well that we're examining to our offset wells, are we in the same rock? So if we're looking at a particular well that's causing us challenges, how do the offset wells do? If the offset wells are drilling in the same rock, yes or no, were they noticing any sort of potential directional issues? So if we are noticing a problem, and we know what it's geographically on the map, it's a nearby well, what's the structure doing? If we're noticing a problem in one well versus not another, then maybe we are in a different section of rock. These results here that are flattened on a particular formation, the same thing is done here where the parameters are transposed to a vertical, so it lets us see a pseudolog of the data. So if there's a particular challenge in one well, but not the other, and the structure is similar, maybe you're higher in section, and that rock isn't doing that same reaction. With that example that I had in the beginning, that was the problem I noticed. It did not always follow the structure, and what was noticed is that when we were higher in a particular section, the structure did not influence the directional tendencies as much as we were in a lower, more brittle rock. So by combining all these together, we can start answering some of these questions and hopefully start planning our wells more efficiently and avoid excessive slide and getting back to plan. Thank you.